It's like any dream. I can move around, but something else is making my choices. Then I get the bad feeling that he's there.
Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge.
And I'm Ashley Sledge.
And let's talk horror. Now, today we're going to be giving you our spoiler review of 2022's The Harbinger. I just said it, but I'm going to say it again. There are going to be a lot of spoilers in this review. So if you haven't seen this movie yet, please go check it out. Find it available on VOD. Come back and watch this review of one of my favorite films of 2022.
Okay, so let's begin. So it begins with a woman. She's very upset. She's trying to wake herself up, like is digging at her arm.
Yeah.
It's bleeding, looks bad. And then you pan over in the hallway. There's a building manager, and the woman's neighbor is like complaining to him about her.
Yeah.
And then she starts yelling. Her name is Mavis. So Jason, the building manager, runs in because she's yelling. When he goes in, he sees her and she just looks so scared.
Yeah.
And she tells him she isn't ready to be forgotten.
What?
Yeah. So he wants to help her with her wound and she's like, no, it's really not that bad. Okay, Mavis.
Yeah.
And then
It's bad.
It is. It's bad.
The wound is bad.
It's deep.
Mm-hmm.
And he asks, can I possibly get into contact with your family? And we find out that they're in the pandemic and that it probably wouldn't do any good anyways because nobody can really visit.
That's one thing we're going to say a lot is we're not going to use the C word because we all know how YouTube is. But this movie does take place during the unfortunate incident of 2020-2021, which is still relevant today. So we are going to not use the word, but you guys know what we're talking about.
Yes. So we pan over to another family, a daughter named Monique. She's setting up for her father's birthday dinner. This is when her brother comes in. His name's Lyle. He walks in with food all packaged up. He has his mask on because of the pandemic. And Monique starts telling Dad about this funny story about how Lyle
The sausage cart.
knocked over a sausage cart and it went down a hill into a dog park. And he said, I bought a lot of sausages that day and I didn't even
get one.
Yeah, which it was a funny, nice little story.
Yeah.
They're all laughing. You feel the love of this family.
Yes. I want to say real quick, I'll talk about this more at the end of the review. This is one of the scariest movies I've watched in a very long time. But this moment had me belly laughing.
Yeah.
So they really achieved what they were looking for with this moment. Great moment in the film.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, you feel the love. You feel the family dynamic.
Yeah.
So this is when Monique's phone rings and she asks Lyle to answer it. And he says, it's Mavis. And she has this kind of like weird look on her face, but she takes the phone call.
Right. And what I love about this moment is like he looks at her and she looks at him and she's like, answer it.
Yeah.
Answer my phone, dude. Lyle, Dad, Monique sit down for birthday dinner. Dad thanks them for giving up their lives to come back here. This is when Monique brings up that she wants to return to the city. And obviously, it's never been said, but Dad is very sick. So the thought of somebody leaving the house to go back to the city is a very scary thought for them.
Yeah.
They've been quarantined. They've been doing everything right. They've been bleaching to make sure that Dad doesn't get sick.
Yeah, wiping everything down. When they're bringing groceries in,
Yeah.
wiping everything down.
And they even ask when he gets there, when Lyle gets there, how'd it go?
Yeah.
Good. I made the call. He brought it right to my trunk. No contact.
Had a mask on.
Yep, paid beforehand.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of us can relate, especially right now, to how this movie was played off, especially if you have immunocompromised or sick loved ones. You can really understand the fear that goes beyond that. Lyle does get very upset, doesn't want her to go to the city with the virus being around, bringing it back. She said, it's life or death. Mavis said it's life or death. Lyle's like, well, so is this.
Yeah, like this right now, this here is life or death.
Yes. So Dad doesn't want her to go either, and he calls her his little sparrow. So obviously a lot of love in this moment.
Monique is in her room. She's writing on a piece of paper when Lyle walks in and says, don't go writing notes and then running off. I'll let Dad know. But if any asshole sneezes on you, you're going to quarantine for 14 days. And
Glad that's not taken literally.
yeah.
We don't need any asshole sneezes. Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to say, I love at this moment. I have a little sister, Kendra, for those of you that don't know, that is my heart and soul. And I love in this moment, you have that brother and sister intuition where the brother steps in and he's like, the minute that you took that phone call, I knew
knew,
you were leaving.
yeah.
You knew you were leaving. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no,
But
you're good.
I just feel like that's a really important part of this dynamic is when you truly have that brother or sister that you grew up with, that you were very close in age with, you have that intuition of each other because
yeah.
you know each other so well.
You know exactly what they had planned before they even said it.
Right. And that's something in this film that I feel like the humanity part of this movie hits very much at home for me. So I just wanted to say that I thought that was a very unique and well executed line in the film.
Yeah, so Monique, she agrees. She's like, yes, I know that I will have to quarantine. And he's like, well, whatever note you're writing, just give it to me and I'll let Dad know. And she's like, it's not exactly a note. And she hands him this drawing, which is really a really good drawing. Like she's
drawing.
a really great artist. It's of a sparrow, because she's his little sparrow.
I wonder if it'll come back in the future.
I guess let's find out.
Let's find out.
So Monique, she ends up leaving. She goes to Mavis's apartment building in the city. She's walking in, and this mom is carrying her little boy, and he's coughing and looks really sick. So she goes up to Mavis's floor and is getting ready to go in when Mavis's neighbor comes out and is like, who are you? Why are you here? And she's like, whoa, you need to step back 6 feet. She doesn't have a mask on, the neighbor, and the neighbor gets upset and calling, kind of mumbling under her breath, like, you sheeple, stuff like that. Yeah. So she knocks on the door, Mavis answers the door, and she's really glad to see her. Like, she's very happy to see her. She's like, can I go to the bathroom? And, Mavis starts cleaning up her house because it's messy. She's obviously been going through something, and hasn't been cleaning her home. So she comes back out, and
what I love about this moment is you also have this connection here with these two. Again, I want to get personal here for just a second. My sister has hearing problems, and so when I talk to people, I look at their mouth when we're talking. It's something I've always done. It's from my sister's speech classes. It's something I've always done. So that was one of the hard things during that shall not be mentioned, that it was difficult for me because I like to look at people's mouths when they're talking to help me differentiate in what they're saying. So you could tell that there's that little bit of animosity almost between these two where they don't want to be doing what they're doing right now.
Well, good thing you said that, because they decide they've both been safe, they've both been quarantined, so they take their masks off and they hug. And then you get this kind of like montage of them hanging out, catching up, when Mavis is going through some old photos and she finds a photo of them when they were younger. So they're reminiscing, and then they hear the little boy, he lives above Mavis, and they hear him coughing, and Mavis says, kids can't get that, can they?
Oh boy. So Monique wants to know what's going on with Mavis. You know, that I came here, you told me this is life or death. What's going on? Mavis tells her she's having bad dreams. It's like she is outside of herself. She's been able to shake them off, but lately it's gotten so much worse, and that she can't even wake up. She'll set alarms, even go as far as to gouge her arms. There has been a time where she was in the dream for days. She could walk around, but she couldn't wake up. But she could always feel him there. Monique says who, and Mavis just says him. I can't wake up, so I say, fuck it. I jumped off a cliff, and not even that woke me up. Because we all know, we've had dreams where we're falling. And you wake up before you hit the ground, and she says that. She's like, no, I hit the ground, I explode into pieces, and I'm just laying there in pieces all over the ground. But then when I do wake up, I'm still in a nightmare because of what's going on around us in the real world. I'm not able to see my friends and family. Mavis is making a bed for Monique in the living room. When Monique tells her she'll sleep with her, Mavis is like, no, we're not doing that. And Monique's like, listen, wouldn't it just make you feel better to have someone next to you?
Right.
And she's like, you know what? Let's do it. So then they go to bed, so that way she's not sleeping alone.
So they both fall asleep, and Monique has this dream. She's younger, she's a little girl, and she's like out in the forest, and there's snow everywhere, and her mom keeps saying, I'm over here. And then you see this like shadow monster, and in a demonic voice says, I'm not your mother.
Oh my gosh, this part was so good.
Yes.
So good.
So Monique, she wakes up from this nightmare, and she gets a phone call from her brother Lyle, and he says that Dad spiked a fever last night, and he's hoping it's not because of the virus. And he,
at this point, you have this genuine fear, like she left the city.
Yeah.
Or she left for the city, I'm sorry, when her dad was sick. And now he's got it. Like, he has it now.
Right.
And he's already immunocompromised. So now what am I going to do? I've been in the city where I know that the thing is here in this building. You know, the bad thing is here in this building. Now I really can't go home.
Right.
So, absolutely terrifying moment to find out that your elderly, immunocompromised father has spiked a fever. And how hot? Hot.
Yeah.
104. Like, it's like, oh no.
Right. She then hears screaming from upstairs, and this is when the little boy from upstairs, he falls through the ceiling onto the floor.
Yeah.
Which is scary in itself. And then the outside door to the hallway opens, and you see this like shadow monster. He's like, in the doorway, kind of just going down. And the little boy, he sits up and he says, he's happy to meet you. And this is the sound of his voice, which is super creepy.
And the boy looks so scary at this point. Like, he's already been dead for a while.
Yeah.
Monique wakes up for real this time to call Lyle, and she asks if everything's going okay. Lyle says, well, Dad's fucking pissed that you left. She asks him if he's sick, and he's like, no, his breathing's a little weird, but he's okay. A note slips under the door. Someone in the apartment complex has tested positive. So Mavis cries out, and Monique checks on her. She shows her the letter, and Mavis apologizes, and Monique says, you couldn't have known. I already knew what I was getting into. I knew I was going to have to quarantine when I got home anyway. Monique has a list of psychiatrists for Mavis to get in contact with, and Mavis says, you don't have to pretend to believe me. How would you help me? And at this point,
if you actually believe what I was saying, how would you help me then?
Right. And Monique asks Mavis to describe the thing, the monster, and Monique starts drawing it. After she's done drawing it, we see that it's a plague doctor from, back in the day when they used to have the plague, the Black Plague. They had the plague doctors that would come in. And they hear an ambulance, go to the hallway to see, and the little boy from upstairs unfortunately has passed away from his illness.
This scene, it's so it's just heart-wrenching. Even the neighbor that's calling people sheeple and stuff is standing out there, and you see that she's upset and look on her face.
It's one of those things where she's realized that the internet's not always right. It's right in her face now. This isn't just something on TV or something on the internet. This is somebody that she knew that's gone.
Right.
So you definitely see a change of heart in her at this moment. Yeah.
So that night, Monique, she has another dream. She's a younger girl again, and her mother is still alive. And she walks past her bedroom, and Mom, tells her to come in. And she says, I'm scared, Mom. I'm scared that I'll be forgotten. Mom kind of reassures her, like, you're not going to be forgotten. Look at Grandma's picture. Like, we have these pictures, She's trying to reassure her. When Monique points and says, what about him? And you look over, and it's the plague monster, the plague doctor.
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah, and this is when Mom, she gets, serious face. Oh, him? And grabs her and just, shoves her under the covers. She wakes up in the back of a semi-truck, and there's a man in there with her. He starts running at her, and she's banging on the doors. This is when it opens up into a dark basement. So she's now in this basement. She sees these stairs, starts walking up them, and on the wall up there, there's this sparrow that's etched into the wall. So she goes to kind of touch it when two of these hands just break through the wall. Freaks her out. She runs back downstairs. This is when she sees the little boy that passed away. And he's down there, and he says, I can help you wake up. And he takes this huge needle and stabs it through her temple.
She screams and she wakes up at this point. She sees Mavis sleep standing and calls out to her. She peed all over the floor. Monique cleans up the mess and just waits for her to wake up. Finally, she takes in a deep breath and wakes up. She asks what time it is. Monique says that it's 2:30. Monique tells Mavis she's also having the dreams now. I'm having these dreams. I'm seeing them. Mavis is like, so I'm fucked us both.
Yeah.
So at this point, we're both fucked now. Monique tells her she's not ready to believe that yet, that she's read some comments on Reddit, and she's found some posts about this. So they're going to meet with a demonologist. They have a video call with the demonologist, and Monique shows her the sketch of the demon. The demonologist tells her to put that down.
Yeah, you can see the fear in her face when she says it. She's like, put that away.
And even before that, she has kids in there, and she's like, yeah, this is my new normal. Even if we're talking about scary stuff, we got to keep our voices happy.
Yeah.
And when she sees that, she's like, burn it. Burn it, and delete the post, or this phone call is over. The demonologist tells her that, and then she calls him the Harbinger. She says that that's what his name is. He's the Harbinger. They said the name of the movie. He likes the pandemic. because everybody's isolated.
They're
So
by
it's
themselves.
easier for him to make his way in. And he breaks you down. He takes you until there's no trace of you. So the thought of death is scary enough, but what about the thought of being completely erased, of completely losing yourself? Like we've heard throughout the film, I'm not ready to be erased. I'm not ready to disappear. At that point, I thought it was dying.
Right.
It's not. He eats you until there's no memory and anybody that you love left of you.
Which is terrifying.
So scary. I haven't been this scared of a moment in a movie since the sunken place in Get Out. You know, the idea of being in your body but not being able to control anything. That's how I felt with this. The idea of being erased to the point where my wife, my children wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
My wife wouldn't have ever known me. There's such a terrifying thought to me. That's what really hit me so hard about this film is the originality of that type of fear.
Which they always leave a little hint.
Right.
But when you know, like a picture or a drawing, but when you look at it, you don't
know who
remember
it is.
anything about that person or why that person is with you.
Right. So they ask, what are we supposed to do? And the demonologist says, delete him and don't spread him. Mavis says, no, what are we supposed to do?
What are we supposed to do?
The demonologist says she doesn't know. And this is where we do have a pretty big freak out right here. And the demonologist hangs up on him because she's like, your voice. She's like, fuck my voice.
Yeah, well, she slams the thing.
And yeah, it's pretty gnarly at this point.
Monique asks Mavis, do you believe her? And Mavis says, he's already hollowed me out. I must be pretty easy to forget. And Monique says, not for me. I've tried. So it sounds like they haven't seen each other. Like their friendship was good when they were younger, but it sounds like they kind of went their separate ways.
It almost sounds like they were lovers at one point.
It does. It does feel like that. Like you feel the genuine love, and it feels more than just like best friends.
Right. Which, you know, I think that's the ambiguity of that. You don't know if they were ever a couple. You don't know if they were not. It doesn't really say so because that's not important to the story.
Right.
The important part is whether they were lovers or whether they were best friends, you feel real love between the two of these people.
Mavis says, someone planted the seed in my mind. Someone has been here. She has a picture of a man and she's like, look how he's looking at me. Like this man is sitting on her bed in her room with all of her things. So she knows that she took the picture and she's like, look how he's looking at me. Like I had somebody that loved me. And now where is he? She's like, and it's like he never was. This is just cruel. Monique, she decides to leave that night. She leaves Mavis a note. She goes back home. Dad is upset with her. She left, and he didn't want her to. So they say, you've been exposed. You've been in that building. You have to quarantine for 14 days. And she's like, absolutely, I agree. This is when Lyle, he says, did you do what you set out to do? And she starts crying and is like, no, I left Mavis in her time of need. And yeah. This
is when they're sitting on the couch at this point. Ronald, the dad, and Lyle, the brother.
Yes.
They're standing up and she's on the couch and Lyle looks over at her and he's like, Mo, your mask. And her mask is just gone.
Yeah. She's like, where did it go?
Where did my mask go? So then dad and brother start dragging her up the stairs and she's screaming. She's like, please, what are you doing? Don't do this. I don't know where my mask is. And dad's egging it on. Go, get her up there. Get her to the top of the stairs.
He says.
Yep. She's locked in the bedroom with her skeleton mom. She starts banging on the door. Please let me out. The door falls over. She's now in a funeral home. You see the little boy's in the casket. She walks up to the casket. When the camera pans over, the little boy isn't there anymore. The lid closes and he's standing up behind the casket. He chases her. She runs and hides in a cabinet. The boy grabs a medical saw, which I love these old school medical saws. They're just really, really cool looking. He opens the cabinet and says, it's okay. She says, how are you here? And I haven't all the way left, he tells her. I'm not all the way gone yet. He says, I seen him too, but the adult germs that I wasn't supposed to get, they killed me first. The boy says the demonologist was wrong. There is a way to stop him. He tells her to take him to the place where she sleeps, and they go to Mavis's bedroom. You see herself and Mavis sleeping. The boy says he's not here for you, and the Harbinger takes Mavis.
Monique, she wakes up in this empty apartment, has no idea where she is. This is when the manager from the beginning, Jason, he walks in and tells her, you gotta go. Like, we don't...
You're a squatter.
Yeah.
I'm not here to hurt you, but you have to get out of here. Are you on a binge?
Right.
'Cause obviously in this city, there's a lot of homeless people, a lot of squatters that just break into apartments and sleep. It's not a furnished apartment. It's an empty apartment.
It's empty, completely empty.
So obviously this is something the apartment manager has to deal with a whole bunch.
Right. She calls Lyle. He answers. He's pissed. He's like, where the fuck are you? And she tells him that she woke up in the city in a strange apartment. He doesn't understand how she got there because her car is still at home. So,
and one thing about this is you never know now what's reality,
Right.
what's a dream. Like, you're always on your toes now because you don't know for sure if she's dreaming or real. You didn't know that she really left Mavis or she was still with Mavis. Like, that's another thing I love about this movie is the fear of what's real and what isn't, even as the viewer.
yeah, and for me, I really like psychological, horror like this. So you're definitely on your toes and trying to figure out the reality versus what's not real. So he comes and picks her up. Well, first he asks her, "Are you on your meds?" And she's like, "No," but like saying like that's not the point.
Right.
He comes and picks her up, brings her back home, and he's like, "Tell me about these dreams." He wants to know, like, what's going on with you when you're sleeping. He says, "I feel like I have been worried about you forever, for your whole entire life," which big brothers do.
Yes, they do.
Monique tells him to do the things he wants to do and to keep Dad close. And this worries him. He's like, "I don't like the way you're talking."
Right. So now Monique wakes up in Mavis's room. She just kind of hangs out there when it gets dark, but a bright light shines through like a church window.
Yeah, it looks like almost church windows that she's looking up at.
Right. And the Harbinger is there. She walks up to it and says, "Please, I have a family who need me." The Harbinger says, "You have no family. You were never born, just like you always wanted." And you kind of get this point that Monique has been suicidal and regretful of her whole life for a long time. She gouges out its eyes and takes the medical saw and cuts its head off. She puts a sheet over the Harbinger and starts sketching a sparrow in the floor when she hears a knock on the door. It's the little boy, and he says, she says, "I'm happy to see you. Can I come in?" he asks, and she asks him his name. He says his name is Edward. She thanks him, and Edward says, "Now you have to wake up. I'll show you where." And they walk off together into the forest.
In the forest, Monique's bed is there. Edward tells her, "Get in." And she gets in. He says, "Close your eyes." Monique asks, "Where are you going to go?" And he says, "Maybe I'll be God." Monique says, "I'll never forget you." And she falls asleep. She then wakes up in her room, in her own bed. This is when Lyle says, "Dad, she's awake." Apparently she had been sleeping for 3 days. And they tried to take her to the hospital, but because she was still breathing and really nothing besides her just sleeping.
They didn't have any open beds either. Because of
So they had someone in a hazmat suit came and they tested all 3 of them and all of them are negative, which is kind of like an uplifting feeling. Like the plague doctor's gone, they don't have the plague. Like I really feel
what a happy ending.
Yeah, it's such a happy ending.
What
right?
a happy ending. Can we just stop now?
Yeah, let's just stop here.
Yep, that's it. That's the end.
So she has a video chat with the demonologist and she tells her, she's been doing good. She's had 3 nights of just regular dreaming. And that she no longer remembers Mavis,
But she obviously doesn't say her name. "I no longer remember who gave this to me."
Yeah, so she pulls out the picture of when they were younger and she sees this girl, but she doesn't remember who she is. The demonologist asks her, like, "How did you know what to do?" And she told her about the boy and how he is an angel.
Well, one thing I want to say real quick is Mavis was right. I must be so easy to forget, and now she's forgotten. Like, it's so scary.
It is. It's just sad. Like, it's sad enough to lose somebody, but to completely forget them. I know that's a fear. Like when you do lose someone, like you forget the sound of their voice or things like that. Like that's scary.
That's
enough.
a genuine real fear.
It really
and that's
is.
what this movie plays on, is that genuine real fear. But the demonologist says this isn't how this works. She gets upset. She's like, everybody in your dream is the Harbinger.
Yeah.
There's no good in the dream. She gets pissed and hangs up. Like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And then the Harbinger takes her. Lyle no longer remembers Monique. As somebody checks in and
It's like a bystander, like calling into the door,
Yeah.
asking if he's okay.
and he says, "My dad's in the hospital. He's got the sickness."
Yeah, he's on the ventilator, but he's gonna get off today.
Yep, he's getting off the ventilator today. Like, "What about your siblings?" He says, "Nope, I'm an only child." He brings Dad home, and they're looking out the window. Lyle says, "You did it. You got the tube out, but you don't look happy." Dad says it's hard to be happy in this world. He says, "I'm going to go to bed." He's really down.
Yeah.
And he's walking by, and he sees a picture on the floor, and he bends down and picks it up, and it's the sparrow that she drew earlier. and the look on his face, he's so upset, like he's about to cry.
Yeah.
And that is legit where the movie ends. Now,
it's like, does he remember her, or
Though
does he
his
know
look-
that there's something missing because
Yeah.
that's his daughter?
yes. One brilliant thing they did in this movie that I even told Ashley when we were watching, when Monique kills the Harbinger, when she knocks it down and cuts its head off.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh,
It's
she just
Mavis.
killed Mavis.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that's the direction.
I went there too, because that's a lot of the time when they're in their own head, it's a
You're
psychological
doing-
issue.
yes.
She's off her meds. Like,
I thought she was killing Mavis in the real world.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they subverted my expectations there. I think
Yeah.
that's what they were trying to do. But they give you this real idea that this is a happy ending.
Right.
So I said this at the beginning, and I genuinely mean this. Obviously, we've done reviews on movies where we have not given them perfect scores, or we've talked about things we disliked. But I'm going to give this movie a 4 out of 5.
Wow.
This is one of my top 5 films of 2022. This and Smile, I think, are the films that have stuck with me the most this year for how much they genuinely scared me. And it's a movie that I am excited for a physical media release. I'm excited to see some behind the scenes and things that they were able to do on set. Obviously, this was filmed during a very hard time.
Yeah.
And for being an independent film, I didn't have that low budget independent film feeling throughout a lot of it. If there are some things I could gripe about, there's a point when the little boy comes to her house and he's like, can I come in? Which is very obviously in front of a green screen.
Yeah.
Like when he's out in the snow and he comes in, it's very obvious that it's not practically done. So I mean, there are little things here and there that I think could have been improved, but I shut this movie off when we were done and was genuinely stuck on how much I really liked this film. And it's not lip service.
Right.
It's not, hey, you get the screener, so now I'm going to talk it all up. I fucking love this movie. So I personally can't recommend The Harbinger enough to any of you. What about you, my love?
I'm also going to give it a 4 out of 5. Yeah. So this movie, it makes you feel. And I know that we all went through this really scary time, and it kind of brings back some of that PTSD and like how we all went through this and the bad times that we had. And it makes you feel like losing a loved one and things like that. So I really enjoyed it, and it scared me on a level, not from like jump scares or things like that, but it scared me on a different level. And yeah.
A real genuine fear, that idea of being forgotten, is a scary thought. So
yeah.
It's great.
It really is.
I
It's a
can't
good
recommend this movie enough.
So yeah, I hope that you guys all got to watch it and then you watched our review.
And if not, if you were stubborn and you wanted to watch our review first, I hope that we've convinced you to go and give this movie a chance, because you're doing yourself a disservice if you didn't watch it. Obviously, there's a lot we left out of our review. We don't want to give away every single plot point, every single detail, because it would take way too long.
Right.
You're going to miss out on a lot of really great things if you didn't watch this film. So make sure you guys are checking it out. And until next time, I'm Ken Sledge.
And I'm Ashley Sledge.
Keep talking horror.
Stay who you are.
And we'll see you guys soon.
Bye.